なが幸せなあの場所に。
Boo! Did I scare ya? I know I scared myself. My pants are soaked in piss right now. Speaking of terrifying things, VTubers! Not only do they flood my YouTube subscription feed, they haunt my nightmares and have crept into every single part of my mind. Please God, send help. For those of you who don't know, which statistically is most of you, I'm a huge fan of horror. I love horror movies, games, stories, what have you. I love being spooked. Trouble is, how do I combine my love of horror with my newfound fears? If only I had some kind of virtual experience of my worst possible nightmare, being trapped in a rural Japanese high school with a bunch of VTubers. That was a joke. Hololive ERROR is one of Hololive's attempts to branch out of simply managing their expanding collection of streaming anime girls. Unlike Alternative's lore-based stories and MMO, ERROR is an even more alternate world where all our favorite Hololive girls, or at least a good number of them, play high school girls in rural Japan. Spoilers, their school is haunted. That's right, as was heavily implied, ERROR is a horror experience. Typically something you don't really expect from the idol-esque image of VTubers. And yeah, we'll get there. There's two main ERROR products, the game and a YouTube series. If you actually want to see and hear all your Hololive Oshis playing their roles in this horror story, then you should probably go watch the series on YouTube, since the only ones you'll actually see in the game are Sora, Korone, and Okayu. It's a 24-episode motion manga, with each episode only lasting a few minutes. Depending on the order you experience these two aspects of ERROR, this manga serves as either a prelude to the game or as further revelations as to what you experienced in the game. In fact, once you've finished at least one ending of Hololive ERROR, the main menu actually gives you a link to go straight to the playlist. The story of Hololive ERROR takes place in one town over 5 different time periods, has 2 landslides, 1 ghost train, a lot of Hololive girls, approximately 4 Tokino Soras, and 0 explanation for the digital artifacting effect. And that's just the surface. I was gonna try not to spoil the story too much, but honestly, things get so confusing at times that you'll probably thank me for explaining it later. I mean, if you only play the game, you got no shot at understanding any of this. So unless you want to watch the 24-episode VTuber motion comic, trust me, you're gonna need this. Oh, and for the sake of ease, I'm gonna use their actual VTuber names instead of the alternate Hololive ERROR names that they all have. Just gonna make this a whole lot less confusing. We start with our first group of Aogami High students introducing themselves to a nameless, faceless transfer student. It's here that we learn a few things that will become vital pieces of information. First, any mentioning or acknowledgement of who we'll call non-essential characters is met with a disturbed and cold hostility. Second, Aogami has a rumor that if you're not kind to transfer students, something terrible will happen. After Nene accidentally hits the transfer student too hard, everyone freezes in fear. Regardless of the transfer student's dismissal, this action seems to cause a sudden landslide which hits the school and presumably kills everyone inside. We're then taken back in time and meet Sora, who has been too shy to try and make any friends. Having prayed at the town shrine, she finds the courage to introduce herself to the new and immensely popular transfer student. This leads to her getting a new group of friends until they all sneak into the school for a test of courage, before another landslide, or I guess the first landslide, destroys the old school building and kills seemingly all but Sora. Sora makes her way to the shrine once again and prays for all of her friends to be saved. Now we're on to the train section, and I'll be real, this one makes absolutely the least amount of sense considering it's also a major component of the game. Basically, another faceless transfer student has come to Aogami and meets our third batch of students. Only this time, the transfer student is having bizarre visions of Sora and the memories of both Sora and the first transfer student. The group discusses how there's been a string of disappearances around Aogami Station. When Okayu posits that the other students who are out with the summer cold may actually be amongst the missing persons, we see a vision of the time Fubuki and Lami asserted it was just a cold when the first transfer student asked a similar question. The next day, Okayu is gone. Everyone seems to be in a loop of repeating all the things they'd said before, and no one but Korone and the transfer student seem to remember Okayu even existed. The transfer student and Pekora, yeah, Pekora's here now, just deal with it, board a mysterious late-night ghost train and find a panicked and furious Korone blaming the transfer student for stealing Okayu away. Some spooky ghost shit happens involving the other girls before they find Okayu, who is staring at the transfer student and making claims like,
あなたが望んだんでしょ? 理想の友達、理想の世界.
She even mentions the names of students from a mysterious yearbook that depicted another set of girls alongside Sora's picture. It's then that Sora reveals herself, something that greatly confuses Korone and Pekora as they ask the transfer student,
なんで二人いるの?
Okay, now comes the part where we can stop discussing all the details and I can just explain to you what is happening, because that's pretty much just what the last section is. Also, I am skipping a short bit in the middle there, but that's because we're gonna get to it during the game portion of the video. Basically, after Sora and her friends died in the first landslide, Sora's prayer allowed her to create an endless loop where she gets to be the popular transfer student, since she saw the one from her class instantly gained a lot of friends, and controls the students of Aogami High to recreate her ideal friend group and to go along with her perfect plot. Anyone who goes against this script is forced to disappear by the original Sora, though these periods can't last forever. Whether it's because of Sora or some kind of divine intervention, each one of these loops ends in disaster. It has to for another one to come to pass. Well, if Sora doesn't die, then she can't come back and keep living in high school. Then again, I don't know, 30-year-olds in high school is like a horror movie staple, so why even do the time loop? Just keep flunking. That works too, right? That's so fucking stupid. What if the plot was she just kept failing high school instead of a supernatural time loop? Anyway, but even having regained her memories of this fact, Sora refuses to change it, as living in her perfect pockets of happiness is better than facing her reality. Basically, if you watched WandaVision or SSSS Gridman, it's the same kind of story, only with time loops and a ghost train. Also, there's some weird plot at the end about how Miko had been warning Suisei that her family needed to stop the deforestation because it'd make the spirits mad, but it also had the consequence of loosening the soil, which is what caused the landslide that killed the girls and destroyed the old school building. So Miko, being the only real survivor of the landslide, becomes an environmental scientist and invents a new breed of tree that will spread rapidly in the forest around Aogami to shore up the soil so that people can safely return to the town. But then she dies and gets to join the spirits of all her friends in Sora's perfect afterlife. That plot point just kind of happens at the end, so I didn't really know where else to put it. Now we can finally talk about the game! The reason you probably clicked this video in the first place. Oh well. I guess we should probably get my review of the game out of the way first. I thought it was okay. Maybe it's because I'm a jaded horror fan who has a hard time being scared these days, but I just didn't find it scary at all. I mean, look at this. How you doing? By the way, yes, I did stream a good chunk of it on twitch.tv/SteveSekai. You should come check me out. I will admit, one part did actually get me to jump, but that's mainly because I got distracted reading a tweet that my friend had sent me before I looked back up at the game. That's insane. What? Oh! Of all things to scare me, it had to be Korone. And I will give credit to this one scene. That's creepy. Cause fuck me, that painting is pretty goddamn creepy. Otherwise, most of my playthrough kind of just looked like this. It's so loud. I'm locked in. Oh. Hey there. God, that sounds awful. Clarify that it is the scary man. This is not the art room. This is just... What's up? Hey, girl. Same, though. Some peaky-ass audio. I'm not gonna front. Oh my god, it is so fucking loud. I don't have time for this ghost shit. I gotta go home and watch VTubers. Anime girl face, I can't. Oh, thank God that sound stopped. Christ almighty. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying I didn't personally find it scary. But I know other people did, so clearly it's effective. Even if some of those people are VTubers, who are the easiest group of people on the planet to scare. It's just not as effective on someone who loves horror like I do. I'm sorry. I don't find VTubers scary. As for the story, you play as a journalist for a paranormal magazine as he investigates Aogami, a town known for paranormal occurrences and landslides, and also where his grandfather disappeared on his own investigation. Most of the notes or recordings you hear are generally just references to plot points we covered in the first section, but I did think it was neat finding out that the survivor that the main character's grandfather interviewed was probably Miko. The other story the game focuses on is that of the school's rumor of a ghost haunting the art prep room. According to the tale, a girl slowly lost her mind while trying to create a painting that no one else could. To achieve this, the girl began using her blood to paint, and with the last stroke, she died. This is the main scary ghost you see throughout the game. Maybe. The game certainly frames her as this ghost, seeing as how she only shows up in the school, leaves behind the bloody painting supplies, and you literally see her making the painting. But that's where things get confusing between the game and the videos. The game shows us this original character model as the painting ghost, but the videos show us Maureen as the painter, and one of the in-game photos also shows her painting, but with the wrong generation of students for when the girl died. As for the plot points you need to have watched the series for, pretty much everything else that happens makes absolutely no sense if you haven't. Especially Ending 3. Ending 3 has Sora say that she never meant for any of this to happen and is trying to resolve the error she committed. Get it? Hololive ERROR. It's the name of the game. Oh, man. Before she tells you that you're being wrapped into her nightmare hellscape wasn't supposed to happen, but asks you to go hear the real story by asking, you know who. Except I didn't know who. When I played this on stream, we got endings 1 and 3, then I got 2 after having watched it. So on the stream, when Sora says, you should know who to ask, I had no clue who she meant. You should already know who to ask. I don't know. As only 5 characters appear, 2 of them are ghosts, 2 are trapped on a ghost train, and one of them is the spirit trapping you there to begin with, and only one of them is named. But if you watch the series, you would know that you're meant to ask Sora herself, as she's likely back at the school in another one of her loops. As for how the hell the game's main character would figure that out based on the events of the game, I have no fucking clue. Look, is Hololive ERROR kind of a mess? Yeah. But does it show a lot of potential? Hell yeah. The writers clearly went for something experimental and interesting, but when you're limited by 3-minute shorts and a company's first attempt at a video game, things can get a little lost in translation. Hell, I'm pretty good at deciphering VTuber bullshit, and there's still some stuff in here that I'm not entirely sure about. Like, did the transfer student actually survive the landslide too? It's heavily implied that only Miko survived, but our character has the same bracelet as the transfer student sitting on his desk at the same time as he discusses how his great-grandmother was a student at the time of the landslide that killed Sora and her friends, and seemingly refused to discuss the event. Though the biggest theory that I'm pretty sure of is this. The real monster is the shrine. A plot point I'd left out until now is that of the woods surrounding Aogami. According to legend, there used to be landslides so frequently that the villagers of Aogami would bury children alive to appease the mountain gods. Miko states that this is why Suisei and her family's logging business need to stay out of the woods. Suisei and Maureen both suffer from serious headaches that shift their personalities, seemingly due to the fact that they would regularly go into the woods. Finally, we can see exactly where Aogami Shrine is located. The woods. Every character who visits the shrine is apparently shifted into this limbo. Sora prays there first, asking for friends, before returning after the landslide to beg the gods to save her and the friends that they'd given her. This starts the loop as they're all trapped in the town, reborn in new forms, to live out Sora's fantasies. Miko is next, praying for the gods to help her trees grow so she can finally ease her guilt. Shortly after, she collapses. Her spirit sits at the shrine and Sora sees her again before leaving to go back to her false life. Because if she acknowledges Miko, she acknowledges her past and brings an end to the endless happy cycle of forgetting the tragedy that befell them. Though she changes her mind and realizes that Miko was simply trying to do the same thing Sora was, relieve her pain. So she invites Miko to join them, which seemingly brings all the girls back into one happy time. The only other ghost with no explanation is that of the man. But knowing it can't be you, you can easily surmise that it must be your missing grandfather. In Ending 1, it's this ghost that stops you from visiting the shrine. In Endings 2 and 3, you find your grandfather's notes about how he was going to visit and continue investigating the shrine. Finally, Sora says that the way out of her world is by going through the shrine door back out into the real world. The shrine is what's holding all these souls captive. And that's Hololive ERROR. If I were to be cynical, I'd say it's just another jump scare simulator with some pretty good atmosphere. But that would be denying the pretty interesting story that the YouTube series weaves into it. Is it about as esoteric and weird as you'd expect from VTuber lore? Of course. Do I wish that the story had all been told in the game instead of in a YouTube series? Obviously. But I don't want to downplay that this is a pretty neat first attempt by Cover to make something very different from their typical image. There's some fun atmospheric moments in the game, and the series conveys some pretty good creep factor for being a motion comic. Now, obviously I've got recommendations, but I'm not going to bore you all with technical stuff about building scares and all that, so I'm just going to ask Cover for two small things. Please increase the walking speed, and please, for the love of all that is holy, fix that sound mixing. Some peaky ass audio, I'm not gonna front. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe to YouTube things. If you want to see me talk more about horror or video games, please let me know. I love both of them very much and I would love to talk about them more here. As I said earlier, I streamed most of my experience with the game on twitch.tv/SteveSekai. You can find me on Twitter @SteveSekai. And channel memberships are now open. So if you want to join that, you'll get access to videos early, you'll get exclusive posts, etc. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a spooky day. Ooh. Alright, fuck. Look. I get it. You're lonely. The afterlife probably, I mean, it looks like this. Probably sucks. But hear me out. I'll hand you my phone. Have you heard of VTubers? I think you'd like them. Alright, so let's just... oh, come on!